Across 5 continents, the 2016 Drivers' Championship was decided in the last race of the season and won by just 5 points. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg went head-to-head in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but despite Hamilton's best efforts to spoil the party, Rosberg finished the race in 2nd place, which was enough to see him crowned this year's champion. But in one of the biggest shocks in recent F1 memory, just 5 days after winning the title, Rosberg announced he was retiring from the sport with immediate effect. To add a huge twist to the tale of 2016, and joining me to discuss all of this and the big moments of the year, I've got a bumper crop of guests. Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer, this year's GP2 champion Pierre Gasly, Force India's Otmar Zafnar, and of course Ted Kravitz. Welcome, chaps. How are you all?
Very well, thank you.
And is it just sinking in? Are you all very well as well?
Yeah.
Very good. Good. You're a bit quiet then. I'm worried about you. Is it just sinking in, Ted, this news? No one saw this one coming, did they?
It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it? I mean, just to put it into some sort of historical context, it's only happened once before that a chap, as a racing driver, has won a world championship, which turned out to be his only world championship, and then retired at the top. And that was back in 1958, Mike Hawthorn. Of course, it has happened since. Jackie Stewart, Alain Prost retired after winning a world championship in 1993, but he'd already won 4 up to that point. So it's never happened before. No one saw it coming. Nico Rosberg himself only decided after the Japanese Grand Prix in October. So a bombshell in Formula One.
Well, I mean, he actually decided straight after winning the championship, because he said that had he not won the title, he would have carried on for another year, or
true.
at least until he did. And Otmar, you must have some sympathy for Mercedes and all this, or at least try. Nico Hülkenberg has left your team, and it's a difficult seat to fill, isn't it? You've got big decisions to make under pressure.
It is, and to do well in the championship these days, you need 2 competent drivers, and Mercedes had that. We certainly had that as well, and everybody recognizes you've got to fill that seat with the best driver you can.
Jolyon, he gave a sort of emotional address just before the FIA Gala in Vienna. You know all too well just how gruelling a season it's been. Does that make you less surprised in a way when you know what he's been through?
I can at least understand more what he's been through. I mean, 21 races, he's with a manufacturer team, but a team that's at the front and title fighting. In between the races, he'll have to be doing a lot of PR work, I'm sure, as well. So it is a pretty hectic schedule, but it's what we love doing. So, he's a Formula 1 driver because he wants to be. He's achieved everything he wanted, sure, but he's still got the fastest car, or probably the fastest car next year, one of them. And it's just, we love racing, so I'm surprised that
you don't think
he's lost a bit of passion. Well, if it was me, I'd stay, because, the competition is what I love, and I think it's what most guys love. But to be honest, I can't get inside his head to understand what he's thinking. If he's happy with his family, then it's up to him, really.
I can think of 50 million other reasons why he'd want to stay as well, Pierre, but it is the best seat on the grid, is it not? Is he mad to walk away from such a great drive?
Yeah, honestly, it's a big surprise, I think, for everyone, because when you're in the best team with the best car and you can win races in Formula 1, I think you need to enjoy it. So I think, everyone was surprised, but as Jolyon said, I think he must have some good reasons to do it, for sure.
OK, Ted, let's think about the options then. Who is your favourite to replace him at Mercedes?
It's tantalising, isn't it? And you've got to say the 4 drivers who would give Lewis Hamilton the hardest time, and therefore us as viewers the best entertainment, are probably the 4 least likely to get the drive. Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo. Their teams are not going to let them go. Maybe with Alonso, McLaren can be persuaded, you never know. But it looks like the most likely are either Pascal Wehrlein, sort of head of the queue of the Mercedes Young Driver Programme, and Valtteri Bottas, who would just be a sort of very solid point-scoring driver that they could probably engineer an exit from Williams out of.
Yeah, and a favourite with Toto, because he's known him for some time. What about your newly signed driver, Esteban Ocon? Have they come calling for him?
No, not yet, and hopefully they won't. We've started working with Esteban already. He's been in our simulator. He's training now. He's learning who the team is, how we operate, getting to know his engineers. So we're well on our way with Esteban for next year, so we hope to keep him.
I like your theory, though. Go for Jenson Button for a year, and sort of give Wehrlein the chance to develop, and then bring him in for 2018.
Yeah, no, like Ted says, the maybe Wehrlein or Bottas, but if those 2 don't fit, and you want the driver market to open up, then I think Jensen knows Lewis. He's a former world champion. He has a lot of experience, and he's probably available. I think more available than Alonso.
Well, certainly be a popular decision, wouldn't it? I mean, a lot of F1 fans would love to see Jensen straight back into the grid again. But talking of Lewis, Jolien, how do you think he'll be feeling right now? Will he be nervous? Will he be optimistic? Do you think he'll have much of a say in what's going to happen?
I think he'll have no say in what's going to happen, but I think he'll be, you know, a little bit disappointed because he feels hard done by, I think, this year to be beaten by Nico anyway. He'd have loved to have revenge next year, I think. So for Nico to go out unbeaten, really, at least sort of in the future, go out at the top, I think that's disappointing for Lewis. But at the same time, I think he'll be in a stronger position next year because no doubt Nico was a tough competitor for him. Anyone else, they could still get a champion driver. It could be Alonso, it could be Button, but they'll be new into Mercedes, where Lewis has now been for many years, and Lewis is, to be fair, driving at the top of his game as well. So I think he'll be feeling confident on one hand, but that confidence will mean that he maybe thinks he could have beaten Nico again, which would be slightly frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Pierre, let's talk about the concept of defending your title. It's something that you can't do in GP2. I'm sure you'd love to. Does it go against a racer's mindset to not want to?
No, I think, you know, like when you're champion, of course you wanna keep it, and you'll try to do everything for it. So I think it's something we count in GP2, but I mean, Lewis had already 2 titles. For sure next year he's gonna have one of the best cars on the grid, so for sure he's gonna try everything to get another one.
Great stuff. Well, you can hear much more on Nico in our special programme, Nico the Brave, with Simon Lazenby, Martin Brundle, Damon Hill and Ted Kravitz. Keep an eye out for that on Sky Sports F1. Now, Nico was crowned 2016 champion, though after undoubtedly one of the most gruelling and entertaining seasons, one filled with plenty of drama, both on and off the track. Let's remind ourselves of some of those very special moments.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Would you take a bullet? Would you buy the gun? I've fallen to my knees, and yes, the war's already won. So please don't take me for no fool. Spend a lifetime in your shoes. Now I'm walking, yes, I'm walking through the fire. I'll keep burning on. Well, I'll hold myself together when it all goes wrong. The fires, they keep burning on. Well, I'll hold myself together when it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong, I'll take my time, I'll keep on holding on. When it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong, when it all goes wrong, I'll pull myself together, keep on holding on. Gloves off, we're finished. You better hand our feet. I'll nurse your battle scars, but you leave my heart to bleed. So please don't take me for no fool. Spend a lifetime in your shoes. Now I'm walking, yes, I'm walking through the fire. I'll keep burning on. Well, I'll hold myself together when it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong. When it all goes wrong, I'll take my time, I'll keep on holding on. When it all goes wrong, when it all goes wrong, when it all goes wrong, I'll pull myself together, keep on holding on. But as I try to tame my flame, you keep playing the same old games. But remember, through dark nights we burn bright till the sun sets, till the sun sets.
for Nico Rosberg. A world championship that once upon a time might have seemed a million miles away is now very much within his grasp. Lights out and away we go. Hamilton goes into the first turn in the lead from Rosberg. Rosberg puts himself up into second place. Fabulous move there from the championship leader. Beautiful stop.
Hamilton holding up his teammate.
Nico Rosberg, he takes the championship.
You did amazing! You did it! I'll pull myself together, be a champion.
Weil dann kann ich Go-Kart fahren lernen, weil er ein Weltmeister ist. Dann kann er mir Go-Kart fahren beibringen und dann später werde ich Formel 1 fahren und versuchen Weltmeister zu werden.
Wow, this season really has had it all, hasn't it? Crashes, clashes, tears and fires. And Otmar will discuss every team separately, individually, a little later on the programme. We've got to start with Mercedes first. Was it always their championship to win? Was it always going to be a race just between the two drivers?
Amazing. Just what a great championship it has been, and including the last couple of races. Mercedes had a dominant car this year, so yeah, I believe it was. I mean, if you just look at the points differences, it was huge. They had a lot of 1-2 finishes. They locked out the front row of the grid a significant amount of times. Yeah, they did a really good job. They deserved the championship, and next year the cars are changing, so you never know what's going to happen.
Yes, exactly. But it's a good thing that we can say what an exciting season it's been when they've won 19 out of 21 races, isn't it?
Yeah, and it went down to the wire, and you know, the racing was great, and it's good for the fans, it's good for us, it's good for the drivers. It was fantastic. And Lewis backing Rosberg up at the last race. I think he did it a little bit too late. Maybe should have started 5 laps earlier. And then it could have been a different outcome. But had I been Nico, I think I would have taken him off if I had the opportunity.
Oh, fiery words there. Just as well you weren't on the pit wall then. Let's talk about your own season very briefly first, because a difficult start, some DNFs, a bit stoppy-starty, you just getting some momentum going, but then you really did seem to come good towards the end and, you know, getting a bit of lady luck as well. So sign a new contract. How do you look back on 2016, or is it too soon to reflect at this stage?
Well, you can reflect at the end of the year. I think it was obviously my rookie year, so the start was quite tough and I had a lot to learn. In spite of GP2, in spite of being a third driver, I think when you find yourself on the grid, and there's a lot of variables in Formula 1, 3 different compounds for the first time this year as well, constantly evolving track conditions and fuel loads and engine modes. Staying on top of that is difficult. But through the year I improved quite well, I'd say. I worked well with the engineers, and in fact we improved the car a bit as well. So I think the second half of the year was a clear improvement, and for me the goal was to be with Renault next year, which is what's happened. To do that I ended up ahead of Kev more often than not in the second half of the year. So that to me is the hallmark of a good season, really. And
I'm sure Malaysia would be cited as your highlight of the year. When you look back at other highlights up and down the grid, what stories stood out for you?
In terms of other people,
yeah.
I'm so busy racing myself, it's difficult to know. But I don't know. I think the Mercedes rivalry obviously is massive, and the one that stands out is them taking each other out in Barcelona, which was awesome, really, for everyone else. Yeah, I still remember I was on the safety car, and my engineer was like, "The 2 Mercedes are crashing." Oh, that's a big story.
Yeah.
Then that's going to be making some headlines. And then there was Austria as well, where the last lap they were fighting for the lead and the same thing happened. So one on the first lap, one on the last lap. And I guess then Red Bull nipping at their heels a bit as well.
Ted, I hate to say this, but you were the only one on our team. You're frowning because you don't know what I'm going to say, do you? You're the only one on our team to predict that Nico would win.
Really?
Yeah.
Did everyone else say Hamilton?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there's one thing I've got right. Yeah. Well, I
Bit of a
guess
stab in the dark.
reason...
Or why did you say it? Why did you say it all those months ago?
Well, I mean, the reason was that I just thought, you know, he'd be able to... Obviously, I couldn't predict the mechanical problems that Lewis Hamilton had. Firstly, in the early first 4 races, and then, of course, Malaysia, which really, the engine blow up. Such a big swing towards Nico Rosberg, kind of really did decide the championship in the end, didn't it? I didn't know that was going to happen, but I just thought I could see some elements of evidence of Nico Rosberg raising his game. After Hamilton had won the title in Austin in 2015, and Rosberg won the remaining races, I just saw Rosberg raising his game, and I thought he could carry that into this year, which undoubtedly he has, and he's got better at overtaking thinking, I know that sounds stupid, but look at Abu Dhabi. When the championship was on the line, his team told Nico, you must overtake Max Verstappen. This is getting critical. Verstappen is only going to one stop. Critical for your championship. And it's Verstappen. And he actually managed to do it. A high-tension, critical moment. And Rosberg did it with a very clean overtake. And so, yeah, I've been impressed with that.
And the poor guy, I mean, he said afterwards that the intensity of that moment was just almost overwhelming. Pierre, when we talk about Mercedes, we have to talk about the dynamic between Rosberg and Hamilton, and you yourself has had a real fierce rivalry with your teammate Giovinazzi. How did that play out in terms of your friendship with him and sharing information and with the team and working together and against one another?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I must just say you obviously beat him.
Yeah, no, that was actually a great year. You know, in GP2 probably there is a bit less rivalry compared to Formula 1, but. I mean, he's a really great guy, really nice, really talented, and at the beginning of the year I didn't expect him to be that close and that competitive, so I've tried to help him as much as I could at the beginning of the year, and coming in the last race I was like, maybe I've been a bit too nice with him, because it was really fast all year, and finally, of course, the last race we had a lot of tensions, and we kind of worked a bit more separately. Of course, it was the last race of the season. The title had to be decided between both of us. So it was kind of difficult weekend inside the team. But I guess when you're fighting for the championship with your teammates, it's always a bit difficult, as we saw for many years with Nico and Lewis. And yeah, I mean, we did it pretty well, because in the end, we separate racing and friendship, and we're still like really good friends, and I wish him all the best for his future, because he's a really talented guy and really nice guy.
Now obviously you raced against both Lewis and Nico this year, and did you see a difference in either of them? What was it like sort of standing within the sort of goldfish bowl of F1, but sort of slightly objectively to the team?
I didn't see really a difference this year compared to previously, but Lewis does do things his own way, I think. That's fair to say. He keeps himself more to himself, and then away from the track, I think it's quite well publicised, but he lives a bit of a different world to the rest of us. And Nico, he's more, you know, friendly with the rest of the drivers, more just your everyday guy really, compared to Lewis. But they're such different people. And then they get on track, and it doesn't really matter if Lewis has been partying, he can turn up and win, or Nico's been studying for so ever long and he can turn up and win or do badly. It's just how it is on the day, really. And to be honest, I think they were very evenly matched, obviously, over the year. But yeah, I think Lewis probably, in spite of all his partying antics, was he was still pretty strong.
Do you think it surprised Lewis? how sort of strong and steady, and the way that Nico just went through the season accumulating points, gathering, not the sort of boom or bust that he was experiencing?
I don't think so, really. I think that what surprised Lewis was that he got the thick end of Mercedes' unreliability. As he told us so many times, there are the Mercedes drivers, there are the Manor drivers, there are the Williams drivers, and there are the Force India drivers who all run the Mercedes engines, and none of them had the problems with their power units that Hamilton had. I think that was surprise number one for Hamilton. Surprise number two was actually that Red Bull and Ferrari were not more competitive and weren't, as he might have considered it, helping him out, taking points away from Nico Rosberg.
And what about things like the radio bans, the qualifying debacle? Did that play a part in it for you?
I mean, the qualifying debacle, we've sort of forgotten about that, haven't we,
Seems
guys?
a long time ago, doesn't it?
I don't think that had anything to do with it. I don't know about the radio ban so much. Sort of common thought throughout the engineers was that the radio ban hurt Nico Rosberg more than anybody else, because he has such a close relationship with Tony Ross's engineer. He used to exchange information, give him tips on driving and what he might need to do. And when the radio ban was lifted, that somehow helped Nico Rosberg. You ask them, you ask Paddy Lowe, Toto Wolff at Mercedes, they say no, it had nothing to do with it. But I think it probably did have something to do with it.
But also, do you remember Baku when Lewis was getting into a bit of a state because he couldn't change the engine mode, and that is an actual result that could have been different as well. So
yeah, Hamilton lost points.
Nico was strong in the first half of the year. That's where he got the big points lead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That was a direct hit. We're going to talk more about Force India shortly, Otmar, but just explain to me from your perspective, how much of attention do you give to Mercedes on the grid. Do you go out to beat Mercedes? Do you go out to even battle with them? Or are you just looking at the sort of microcosm that is your battle with Williams, for example?
Well, we look at our own microcosm, like you say. Not necessarily Williams, but we understand who we're racing. We try to beat all those around us. You know, throughout the year, at the beginning, Haas were stronger than they were at the end, and I think they beat us, I think, a little bit by luck in Australia, so we were looking at them for a bit. Toro Rosso were really strong too at the beginning. Over the year, McLaren, they had a few Q3 qualifying positions, and I think once or twice they out-qualified us, so we looked at them. Renault got stronger over the year
too. Us as well?
We did, yeah, you qualified in Q3. If I remember right, I can't remember. Never. But you were close. You were really close.
Sometimes not far, yeah.
And actually, I think sometimes in FP3, if I remember right,
FP3
you guys,
we could be quite quick.
Yeah, you were really quick. So we looked at we looked at Renault as well. So we look at all those that we're competing with, and hopefully in the future we can look towards Mercedes, but not this year.
Okay, good stuff. Well, that's all we've got time for in part one. Do join us after the break, though, as we continue to review the 2016 season, as we reflect on the battles between Ferrari and Red Bull, and of course Force India and Williams. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the F1 report. Now, Mercedes secured the drivers and constructors double for the third consecutive season. But what were the other stories to come out of 2016? Well, arguably, it was the battles between Red Bull and Ferrari, and also Otmar's team, Force India and Williams, with both the former teams coming out on top. Let's start then with Force India, fourth in the constructors, your best ever result. You must be absolutely delighted, if a little exhausted.
Yeah, both. More delighted than exhausted, though. I mean, that's what we're there to do. That's what we work for. And thankfully, in the end, I mean, it was very close with Williams with 2 races to go. We had a very good Brazil. Their Brazil wasn't probably quite what they were expecting. And then we knew we were going to be strong in Abu Dhabi every year. The track suits our cars. So once we got through Brazil, we were pretty confident that we'd end up fourth.
So a strong season, couple of podiums thrown in to boot. What are you putting the success down to?
Well, it's a long time coming. There are a lot of things that you have to do right in Formula One to be successful. It doesn't happen overnight, and we've been working at this for a good 6-7 years now, putting the infrastructure in place, getting the right people, a bunch of racers at our team. And when you have that, when you have the tools and the right people, then and the drivers, you have to have 2 good drivers, as I mentioned before. You have to understand the tires. I think we do that. You put all that together and race well on Sunday, stay out of trouble, and you score some points.
And a great COO as well.
Yeah, he's too modest. Let's add to some of those things as well. Great people, you're absolutely right, because you empower your people, don't you? Your people don't get lost in a sort of big team mentality and machine like McLaren or Mercedes or Ferrari.
It's a lot easier to empower the people. I mean, my philosophy is you don't micromanage because, number one, I don't know as much as they do, so why should I be making those decisions?
Yeah.
So we don't micromanage. We let them get on with it. The fact that we have half the people that everyone else does means that everyone's got to do twice the work. And they enjoy it. I mean, we always say, you know, we don't have real jobs. It's racing. And they enjoy it, and they enjoy the fact that they have to do twice as much, and it works.
And they've got a very strong and no-nonsense aerodynamic program as well. As Otmar said, they understand the tyres. And let's also credit the engine as well. Nothing happens without a strong donkey in the back. And they've got the Mercedes engine power unit and the ERS in the back of it as well.
Yep. And a word on Williams, because it's been a tough season for them, a popular team, but they certainly haven't done what they said or thought they were able to this year.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you were unkind, I don't know what you think, guys. If you were unkind, you'd say that Williams lucked into 3rd place last year because Red Bull, you know, underperformed. Am I unkind to say that? And actually, 4th or 5th is naturally where Williams should be. What do you?
But they were stronger in previous years than they were this year. This year, I think there were times where we were matching them for race pace, and we were struggling to get points. So before, they've been pole position in Austria, and they've been on the podium ahead of Ferrari even. So I think this year, to be fair, they started well again, and we actually had Force India we were looking at as somewhere in the midfield, and then it just completely reversed the second half of the year, and Force India were way too strong for us, and Williams were almost people that we could race with. They were always just in front.
Which is a surprise, I'm sure.
Well, from where they've been in the last few years, they've been on the podium, they've been pole positions. We're not really scoring points, so it's clearly a step back for them. Really.
It seemed to me there are certain tracks where they're very strong, stronger than we were, but then others where their weaknesses showed. And over the last 2-3 years, we used to be the same. You know, always up ahead at Spa and Monza. You know, a slippery car, not much drag, but lacking downforce. And you know, we made a conscious effort to make sure that we're strong everywhere. And it seemed there were tracks where we knew we'd go there and Williams would beat us, and that happened. But overall, over the 21 races, I mean, we didn't beat them by much, but you know, we came out on top in the end.
And with regards to changes in the driver lineups, obviously Nico leaving, you guys, Felipe retiring, how disruptive is that, especially going into a season where there's huge regulation changes?
Yeah, for sure. You at least need one driver that knows the car and the differences to help develop. And it's great to have two. You need two strong drivers, so every weekend you've got a good chance that either one of them or both of them can score points. So it is disruptive, and I think it's especially disruptive when you have big regulation change.
And what about Lance Stroll, Pierre, coming in as a newbie? How do you think he'll cope at a team with the history and prestige like Williams, but also at a time when there's so much changing and the pecking order will no doubt fluctuate? Yeah,
I think actually next year is going to be a good year for rookie drivers. So I think I'm really excited to see how he's going to do with in Williams with Valtteri next to him. I think he's going to be actually a really good driver to learn, you know, get used to Formula One and get experience from him. So. Yeah, really excited to see how he's gonna do in F1, and of course, as a young driver, I hope he's gonna do well.
Oh, back to Force India. How much of a blow was it losing Nico Hülkenberg, and he'll be partnering the man to your right next season?
Well, for sure we didn't want to lose Nico, but it was an opportunity for him. He's helped develop the team to where it is today. He's a great racing car driver. Still has many good years left in him, and. He's the best racing car driver I know that hasn't been on the podium.
And that still astounds me, actually.
It astounds me too. Spa, he should have been on the podium. Monaco, he should have been on the podium. Even most recently, I can't remember where we were, where I thought this is Nico's podium, probably Brazil. Yeah.
I remember when he was trying to win the race in Brazil. We were watching that because it was the last wet race that was there.
Yeah.
And
I was watching it before the wet race this year. I was like, he hasn't had a podium, and he actually nearly won that race for Force India.
And he should have. He had a 40-some second lead when the safety car came out, bunched everyone back up. I think Lewis overtook him, and he was a bit over-exuberant trying to regain first place, and they ran into each other. Nico ran into him. I can't remember, but yeah. So I mean, that was a win on the cards, and not even a podium in the end. So, but he's he's a talented driver, huge mental capacity. Whenever we speak to him in the race, Andy Stevenson and I, we joke that it's like he's sitting on the couch watching TV or reading a newspaper when he comes on the radio. So he's a great guy, and we wish him luck. But now for us, it's focusing on Esteban to get him up to speed as quickly as possible.
So how excited are you to be partnering him?
I'm really excited, yeah. It's always, I think, as a driver, especially a young driver coming through, you want to be partnered against the best driver you can be to prove yourself, basically. So I was pleased to be with Kevin this year, and next year with Nico. So I kind of agree. He's done a great job. I don't know how he's not been on the podium. I think it also says something about Renault that we've managed to get a great driver into the team and for the future. So hopefully it shows we're going places, and hopefully, you know, I'm going to be pushing hard to be fighting with him.
So what kind of promises or assurances did they give him for next season? Like, where do you expect the team to go?
It's so difficult to say at the moment, but I think what's clear is that we're a manufacturer team. There's huge investment in the factory. There's a lot more people coming on board. They've made great steps with the engine. The people at Enstone know how to produce a winning car. They did that even a few years ago with Kimi and the Lotus. Everything's there to do well, but obviously it doesn't happen overnight. So we're 9th in the Constructors this year. We knew it was going to be tough. But I think in the future, logically, we should be moving up. So I really hope next year we'll be getting regular points and hopefully be fighting a bit more with Force India.
Okay, good stuff. Well, good luck with that. And Ted, let's talk about Red Bull now. Before the start of the season, we said that Toro Rosso would be snapping at their heels and actually probably overtaking them, at least in the first part of the season. They have done incredibly well, have they not?
Yes, and Renault, I mean, considering, you know, where they were with the car, they had a very late change from the Mercedes engine to the Renault engine, and then, you know, they've developed it very nicely. But, I mean, talking about Red Bull, where they move on from here, actually the key for them, I think, will be the Renault engine, that Jolyon's saying. You know, it was all a bit sort of catching up over the last couple of years, but I know everybody at Viry-Châtillon's worked very hard. You might know something about this as well through Toro Rosso. They're working so hard, and Red Bull know that they've got Adrian Newey and they've got Dan Fallows, and the GPS traces show that the Red Bull aerodynamics are the best on the grid, or equal at least to Mercedes. And if they can just get the power unit right from the Renault side, badged as Tag Heuer, then, you know, I think they will be up there challenging, if not maybe even beating Mercedes.
Wow. Pierre, do you share that view? I mean, you're part of the driver programme. Is there a good buoyant mood in camp?
Yeah, definitely. I think in Milton Keynes they are working really hard for next year, and they proved this year that they made a huge step compared to 2015. So if they're able to do the same step for next year, I think definitely they're going to be able to fight even more with Mercedes. Of course, they are waiting for an upgrade from Renault, and I think if they manage to get all the package together, definitely they're going to be really strong.
It's got to be the best chance, I think, next year for Red Bull, because of the new rules. And because I'm really confident that Renault are doing a good job on the engine side. Even from where they were this time last year to this year, it's been a very big step. So they're obviously working very hard to try and reduce the gap some more. And if they can, I think Red Bull should be able to be in the mix a little bit.
I'll be fascinated to see what happens between Max and Daniel. If they're going for victories at every race, that dynamic will change, won't it?
Lewis and Nico, you know, was tough. It's going to be absolute, you know, fireworks for those two, isn't
absolutely. And talking of driver lineups, I've got to ask you, you were linked to the biggest story of last year, well, until Nico retired at least, when Max came into the team for Barcelona, essentially freeing up a seat at Toro Rosso, and then there was talk about you replacing Daniel Kvyat at Toro Rosso. What was going on in your mind when all this was happening?
I mean, of course, I was focusing on my GP2 season and tried to do as well as I could. But of course, for next year, there was an opportunity for me with Toro Rosso, and unfortunately, I could not make it. So, of course, I was really disappointed and really sad, because I've put a lot of hard work and tried to put all my energy and all my time to make it happen. And it was a big shame, but it kind of gave me even more motivation and even more determination to give even more to Red Bull and try to show them that I deserve my chance, and I want to show them that I'm ready for it. And yeah, I'll try everything to make it happen.
How close did you come to being in Formula One this year?
It's difficult to say, you know. Formula One is a tough world, and you're never sure about anything. So at that time, before they announced Daniel, I think everything looked pretty good, and all of a sudden they had to sign Daniel for next year. So that's Formula One, unfortunately, but you need to deal with it, and there will be some more opportunities, and I need to make sure that I can get one of them.
You'll be there soon, I'm sure, but the decision to bring Max in for Daniel Kvyat was immediately vindicated when he took that race win in Barcelona, which was astonishing. Were you as surprised as anyone, or did you know that this guy had it in him?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, Ted was saying earlier that we thought Toro Rosso will be nipping at their heels. Was that you, Ted, or you, Natalie? But so maybe a swap of drivers separated them a bit. So if you know, they know, the teams know which driver is capable of what. We see all the data, so I don't think it was a surprise when they made the move, and I think Max proved himself a worthy candidate at Red Bull.
He's got the tag of Mad Max now, though, of course.
Who named him that?
Nico.
Okay.
You know, he's allowed to, he's the champion now. We saw some amazing overtakes from Max, though, didn't we? I mean, what was he like to drive against? There was a part of you that sort of saw him loitering around in the middle of the grid, or even at the back. You know, a couple of times he went right to the back and you were thinking, what is he going to do this race? Because he's capable of a lot, there's no doubt.
He is, to be honest. I never had much to do with him in the race. Him and the Ferraris and the Mercedes, we were just letting through for blue flags. So it's, I mean, obviously I've seen what he's done, and he's not someone that you want to have in the mirrors. He's done a great job. I think that first race he did as well, it was the one race in the year where 2 Mercedes wiped out. Ricciardo was ahead and technically could have won the race maybe, and he was on a worse strategy. So everything played perfectly into Max's hands for that race. But he has done a really great job, to be fair, and kind of proved them right. Even if I can imagine Kvyat after that Barcelona race really was it's about as bad as it gets.
Well, really struggling, poor guy. He put it on the podium in China. But let's talk about Ferrari, because we've got so much to talk about in such a short space of time. But Ferrari, my goodness, what will they be doing sitting back and thinking about this season? Because it really has been something of a disaster, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what a disappointment, really. You know, they promised so much and then undelivered. 5 areas, really, that they didn't manage to deliver in. Aerodynamics, they were down on that. Engine, they were a little bit behind Mercedes and arguably Renault on the power unit as well. There were some dodgy strategy calls. They could have won Canada. They could have won the Australian Grand Prix after the red flag restart, but chose the wrong strategy. They weren't able in qualifying to turn the engine up, to run higher engine modes than Mercedes, so they always found themselves around 4th, 5th and 6th in qualifying, and that didn't help their race. Tyre management was poor, much worse than Force India, worse than Red Bull and worse than Mercedes as well. And finally, you've got to say the loss of James Allison, of course. Not his fault, forced out of the team, couldn't deliver the time that he wanted to Ferrari after the passing of his wife Rebecca, of course. So that contributed to it as well, losing someone of James's calibre.
Let's talk about one of their other employees, Sebastian Vettel. What did you guys make of that radio meltdown, up and down the grid? You know, when he over in Mexico, when he was a bit naughty.
When he gave Charlie Whiting, Charlie Whiting a message.
Tell you what, if I was his mummy, I'd good ticking off. But what?
I can
really, what was the response?
Understand it.
Can you really?
I can understand it. I would have used different words, but
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't think you can't swear to the referee. In any other game, you get sent off for that and you get a ban. And we know that Charlie listens to the radio. That's why sometimes we say, you know, start the race, Charlie, or whatever. So to tell him what he said in Mexico, I think he's quite lucky with what he got there. You
get the true measure of a person when they're under pressure. In a sporting context, I think. OK, well, that's all we've got time for in part 2. Do join us, though, after the break as we review McLaren's season and hear from new Executive Director Zak Brown on the team's performance in 2016. Welcome back to the F1 Report. It was to be yet another eventful season for McLaren, both on and off the track. Fernando Alonso crashing in the opening race, Stoffel scoring points on his debut, Jenson retiring, and Mr. McLaren himself, Ron Dennis, being forced out of the team he helped forge. Here's what new boss Zak Brown had to say to Sky Sports' Craig Slater on how he joined McLaren, relations inside the team, and how he thinks the team fared, plus their hopes for 2017.
Ron and I have known each other, and I've known McLaren for over a decade now, and really the relationship got started around 2 sponsor partners we brought in, Johnny Walker and Hilton, who are both still with the team. Ron pursued me, and it would have been, working, alongside him, under him. He's the chairman and CEO. I'm not. He then put me forward to the other shareholders, and fortunately for me, all 3 were unanimous in their support of it being a good idea for me to join the team. It's a little awkward for me, if I'm being brutally honest. I'm have a tremendous amount of respect for all 3 shareholders. I've got great relationships with all 3 shareholders. I'm proud to work for all 3 shareholders, and so when they're not getting along, that's not comfortable. They all agree that we need to win world championships, so I'm going to keep my head down, keep my relationship with all shareholders, and it's very good with Ron. I spoke with them last week. We speak often, and so I'm in a good place, but a little uncomfortable at times. The effort is immense, and they're giving everything they've got, and I think they showed great progress this year. Obviously, last couple of years have been difficult, and this year, they had a good race car, and Honda's putting out some good power, and I think if we can make the same leap that we made from 15 to 16, from 16 to 17, we're well on our way.
Feeling awkward at effectively replacing the person who wanted to hire him. Otmar, how has Ron's exit been felt up and down the paddock?
Well, I mean, it was rumored, so but before the rumors started, if it would have happened quickly, it would have been a surprise. I mean, here's a man that pretty much established McLaren to the level that they are today. He's loves racing. He's a true racer. I've known Ron for 18 years. He's he's a unique individual in the paddock, and yeah, it was definitely a surprise. I mean, he is Mr. McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely. Team Insider has told me that Zak Brown, though, is a breath of fresh air, just what the team needs.
Well, I'm sure he will be, because I like the way you describe him, unique individuals.
Diplomatic.
Because, well, let's not face it. Let's be honest about it. People at McLaren were scared of Ron. They were terrified that Ron Dennis would come down to their desks and saying, "What are you doing to make this car quicker?" So they would sometimes cover their behinds, not try anything outrageous in case it failed, in case it didn't work. That happens at teams, doesn't it? And I think that if you remove maybe Ron Dennis, strange as it might sound, new shoots can start to grow. People can get a bit more creative with what they do and not fear for their jobs that big Ron is going to come down there, and say, "What are you doing? Why aren't you making the car quicker?" But Zak Brown has got a big job on his hands, and if he can just leave the racing the way Otmar and the way everybody at Force India and the way Andy Stevenson does, and Bob Fernley as well, leave the racing, leave it to the people who know what they're doing, let them do their jobs, then I think McLaren can flourish.
So working to people's strengths, the stick and the carrot approach, and do you think that does apply also to the drivers? How do you see their racing going in 2017?
Well, as everything else, so difficult to say at the moment. But yeah, they've got Stoffel coming in. He's already shown in one race that he can do the job. I've raced against him. I know that he's a pretty good driver, so I think he'll fill Jensen's shoes quite well. And he's going to push Fernando, I think, as well. So there's every incentive for Fernando to not be outshone by his rookie teammate.
If Fernando's there.
If Fernando's even there, who knows? But I think what you need, anyway, in the team from a driver's point of view is drivers that are going to push each other. So I think they're in a good position from that point of view, but then you need also a car that's competitive, so I'm not sure on that front.
No, it's true. Pierre, you've raced against him, Stoffel. Were you surprised at his performance in Bahrain? How he was able to just go straight in off a flight from Japan and hit the ground running?
Well, honestly, not at all. He proved himself in the lower series every year. He's been competitive in each single series he raced in, so I was really happy for him to see that he could do the job straight away. And yeah, I think he deserved it. He won GP2, didn't have an opportunity in Formula 1, had to wait, and the only opportunity he had, he used it pretty well. And yeah, I think he should be really competitive in 2017.
Jenson Button's retiring unless Otmar gets his way and he's in on the Mercedes seat, but that means that you are one of only 2 Brits left on the grid. Extra pressure, or something that, well, you don't actually take that much attention to?
No, I think it's just nationality at the end of the day. For the home Grand Prix, probably there's now just me and Lewis, so I think they'll be missing Jenson, but there's a bit of pressure on me, I guess, to step up, and hopefully we'll have a car and I'll be driving well. So yeah, and I'm proud to still be out there and representing Britain alongside Lewis. But yeah, it's I think it doesn't really matter where you're from. It's just 22 drivers doing the job.
You never know, Natalie. If Bottas does go to replace Rosberg at Mercedes, we could have Paul di Resta or Alex Lynn taking Bottas's seat at Williams, so we might have 3
That's a very good
British
point.
drivers. You never know.
There's still, even if that doesn't happen, there's 3 drivers at the back of the grid as well, Sauber and Manor, so we're ruling out any potential Brits there.
Absolutely. Otmar, just a quick question on you, obviously Vice President of Honda Racing Development at one stage. What do you know about where Honda can be for McLaren next year?
I don't know much about next year, but
You've got a special guest this weekend who could drink lots of green tea.
I do.
They know their stuff.
I do. I have Kyuchi-san at my house this weekend. Honda will work tirelessly to make sure they have the best powertrain in Formula One. They will work hard. I don't know when they will achieve that or when they will arrive, but I believe they'll make steps from this year to next year. I don't know how big. And then they'll make further steps thereafter. I think the token system has been removed now. You can develop as much as you want on the powertrain front, and I think that's right up Honda's street, so to speak, and they'll keep working for sure.
And let me know how you make the perfect cup of green tea, okay? Let me know on Monday. And Ted, a quick word on Sauber and Manor. It's always so difficult to see, when you know just how hard these smaller teams work, for one of them to lose out to such an extent. How much pressure is Manor going to be under next year? Are they okay? Have they got this American investment that's been mooted? And how important was it for Sauber to get that surge, that backing, and a bit more structure, a bit more infrastructure for the 2017 season?
Well, let's do Sauber first, shall we? You know, we thought they might not survive the season, but then some investors came in. We think they're the people who've been backing Marcus Ericsson all these years, but nobody will really confirm that. And then they went and scored some great points courtesy of Felipe Nasser in Brazil. So Sauber really outstanding job that recovery that they've managed to do. They have had new people come in. Chevy Pujalar's come from Toro Rosso. They've got Ruth Buscombe, who's come in from Haas on the engineering side. They've got Nicholas Hemmel, I think, the new head of Aero, Sauber as well, so they can come through. But on the other side, it's going to be very, very tough for Manor. I think they're going to lose a significant amount of money. They're already, the under offer sign is already above the factory door. They're talking to Tavo Hellman, I think is the American investor you're talking about. Very, very tough for them. And Pascal Wehrlein, he did the job for them, scoring that 1 point in Austria, but it might be in vain.
Okay, there's going to be a few seats floating about at the moment. Where's your money? Pierre, are we going to see you in F1? Are we going to see you in one of these seats?
I think, yeah, honestly and objectively, it's going to be difficult. Of course, at the moment there are 2 seats available in Manor and one left in Sauber. But as you said, I'm with Red Bull, really grateful for what they did to me since 3 years. And yeah, I think at the moment I need to be patient and see what's going to happen in Toro Rosso.
Okay, fingers crossed. Very quick word from each of you. Predictions, dark horses, any surprises that are going to be sprung next year? What can we look forward to? Starting with you, Julian.
Renault being the dark horse, having a fantastic year. I think it's going to be, I think Red Bull are going to be strong. Okay. And Renault, obviously.
Omar?
Force India challenging the top 3.
I mean, why would I doubt it for a second? Pierre?
Max fighting for the World Championship.
Wow, okay.
Yep, I'll go with Pierre on that one. Red Bull are going to be very, very strong next year. Verstappen, Ricciardo and Hamilton fighting for the World Championship. Probably Hamilton's going to win it again, but I wouldn't put... I'd put some money on Daniel Ricciardo winning the championship next year.
Well, you got it right this year, Ted, so I'm going straight down to the bookies with that advice. Thank you very much. Right, that's it for the season review. My thanks, of course, to Pierre, Jolien, Otmar and Ted. I'm back in a week's time for another end of season show. This time it's a journalist special.